Well, Gary, it's Memorial Day, and it's a nice, beautiful day out here in eastern Iowa, and man, I'm tired. Are you?
Oh, I'm very tired.
I think you kind of wore me out yesterday, but
Likewise, you wore me out.
so what are we talking about? Why are we so tired today? Well, let's talk about it. Coming up on the War Bonds channel. Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another video podcast here on the War Bonds channel. If you don't know me and you're unfamiliar with this channel, my name is Eric. I'm a locomotive engineer for a U.S. Class 1 railroad by profession, an avid model railroader, and just a lifelong rail enthusiast. Well, today is video number 22 of my series, building a 1-inch scale Santa Fe GP60M locomotive. And I have actually traveled to eastern Iowa on this fine Memorial Day weekend to meet with my good friend Gary, whom you have seen in a few of my other videos in the past, and who, as any of you have watched the channel for a while, know that he's been a very important part in helping me to 3D print parts for the locomotive and everything. And as I mentioned in my last video, that I would be traveling to visit him, because I just kind of got to a point where I was putting things together on the locomotive, but by the time it was all said and done, it's like, okay, I just need that little extra boost to get over the hump. And I ended up telling Gary that, I need a little bit more encouragement. So, let's make a plan of me coming to visit you, and we can maybe get some more parts 3D printed. And then he said, well, you know what? When you come, bring your electronics, because let's see if we can get this thing going. And that's a fabulous idea. So I actually ended up coming to visit Gary. I got today's Monday, Memorial Day, and I got here on Friday, and we just kind of hung out and ran some model trains on his Iowa Eastern Railroad, and we then spent yesterday actually working on the GP60M. And as we said in the opening monologue, that we're both tired. Yesterday was a long day, but we got a lot of stuff done with the GP60M, and it actually runs. There's a few little teething problems with it and a few things that have to be worked out, but we were very, very successful in getting it to run. So, Gary, I really appreciate, all the help, because, this might be my channel and everything, but I came to your domain and you helped me do a tremendous amount of things. And, we were just talking about the fact that, there are several people that have helped me in this project. So I am by far not alone in having, done everything to actually get this project to the point that it's been. But Gary, I really appreciate all your help, and
Absolutely.
And well, how do you feel about it, the way things went yesterday?
I think we got to a good point, a historic point, if you will.
Absolutely.
The fact that we were able to get the electronics hooked up, and like you said, there's going to be some break-in time and getting it figured out, but you're able to go and put it on the track and have it run on its own now. So
yes, absolutely. It's more than just a 300-pound paperweight.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's every bit of that. I know that for a fact.
Since I didn't actually do an intro before we started the work yesterday, I figured we would just kind of backtrack and show you the video footage of everything we did. So as Gary says, it was quite successful, and we got a lot of stuff done here. So we'll without further ado, take you back to yesterday and show you everything we did on the GP60M locomotive, installing the electronics. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about this morning is we're going to basically install this sound deadener. And so Gary, what's the name of this product again?
Well, this is an off-brand, but most people know it by Dynamat. This particular brand is Killmat, and it's used in a lot in like car audio and in vehicles to help deaden sound, whether keep the sound out, like from road noise, or the people in the car audio world. It helps project the sound to your ears, basically.
So basically, what we'll do is once we put the speakers in, the fuel tank is going to be pretty much a sound box anyway. So, so with this product, it'll basically amplify the sound and give it a fuller sound. And as we were talking earlier off camera, just the fuel tank itself, because it's metal, it kind of has a tinny sound. So at least this product will help in making the sound bigger and bolder. So
and it'll help project the sound out more rather than it, like, think about the sound waves inside here bouncing around. Without having this, they just bounce around and then eventually go out, where this actually helps push it out. So
great. Well, what we're actually doing now, or Gary's doing now, is actually cutting it to fit. And so we're actually going to line the inside of the fuel tank with this, and then we'll be going from there. So I said earlier, what we're basically going to be doing, the biggest thing is working with the electronics and the sound and everything. So once we get this product mounted in here, then we'll start looking at the electronics. So it's been quite a while since my friend Charles and I had actually talked about the electronics and how to install it. So and as you may have known from previous videos, I had some problems with the electronics when I actually tried to install them before. So that problem has hopefully been rectified since I sent everything back to the manufacturer and everything was tested to be working. But I've had the electronics back for several months and haven't done anything with them yet. So at this point, this is going to be the telltale of whether everything works. So I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm excited to hopefully see this thing start rolling on its own. Okay, so Gary has previously cut the Dynamat material, and we've got it cut to length anyway. So now we're just getting it put in here. And as you can see, there's a little bit of excess there, which obviously once it's fit in there, we'll be using the knife to trim it down.
different situations, you can actually put it in and then trim it, but the reason why I'm not doing that right now, I'm kind of at least somewhat sizing it, is because of all your excess parts but your fuel tank parts.
Sure.
I'd rather have it less amount of cutting, because then there's less amount of chances of dinging something else, and breaking something off. So
exactly,
the more you can cut it to fit ahead of time, the better. What I'm using here, if you're wondering what I'm using to cut, this is actually a carpet knife used for cutting carpet and linoleum and stuff. If you go this route, they are very, very sharp. They're way more sharper than a standard razor blade. It doesn't take much for you to slice deep to your bone. Trust me, I know. Don't ask me how I know. I know.
Well, we will just take that as a warning and just be optimistic that everything is going to come out as intended.
Right. But in the end, though, I've used regular utility knife blades, and they work, but they just don't seem to, once you cut so far, they start to tear rather than cut.
Right.
So that's where I like to use that. Just, there's a little bit of a risk.
Exactly. Well, as I think I've mentioned in this channel plenty of times, that there's always a risk for anything, you know, using any kind of tools. But okay, so at this point, Gary's got the insides properly lined with the Dynamat. And as we were talking off camera, which maybe some of the same things that we said before, is that with that in there, it's definitely going to make the sound a lot more stout and sturdy, for lack of a better term. And so now we've got the sides, and he's actually taken some of the Dynamat, and he's using the outside of the fuel tank there just to get a measure there, and then we'll have some on the insides of the end portions of the tank.
Yeah, like right here.
So basically, he's using the end of the tank to essentially make a template for both ends.
Wow.
Okay, so after having traced around the end of the fuel tank, so just taking his knife to actually cut everything out. And Gary actually mentioned off camera that, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. Obviously, nothing is perfect, but as long as we get as much coverage as possible, get the maximum coverage, that will definitely help tremendously in projecting the sound. And as we see here, we've taken the bottom of the fuel tank off, but you can see the holes that have been fabricated in this piece, be able to allow the sound to travel downward. So from the fuel tank down to the ground, which will reverberate out very nicely. Gary's got the first end cut, and now that he's got it cut the way he wants, he just takes that piece and then simply uses that as the next template in order to make the piece for the other end of the tank.
This stuff is actually really forgiving, considering. So the thing I would say is if you do go this route for, if you're building a 1-inch scale or speaker or whatever, don't get caught up in it's not a perfect fit, because you can always go back and where you may have cut short to use your scraps to go over top. It's not really the look that matters, is that you got coverage.
Exactly. Okay, so at this point, we have the Dynamat in, and we have all of our, for lack of a better term, holes closed up. Everything is sealed up pretty good. So now the next step is we're going to start adding the speakers in there as we continue on our quest to get the electronics fully installed and hopefully see this bad girl run. All right, so now the next step, we actually just pulled out the electronics, and the electronics are actually in this box here, but the first step, since we have the Dynamat in the fuel tank, so now we're going to go ahead and put the speakers in, and meanwhile, well, Gary's dropping everything over there.
Yep.
So we'll have dual speakers, and got one started, and Gary's going to get the second one put in here.
At least that's the plan.
The plan. Okay, so now the next step that we're doing is we're going to fish the wire for the remote control itself. Now, at this point, it's got to be tethered. As much as I would love to be able to use my phone or any kind of a wireless controller, at this point, it's got to be tethered. So so we tried to hide it just underneath the rear anti-climber there, just kind of make it as hidden as we could. But so we're gonna feed the wire through, and then underneath, and then it's gonna come up through these two access ports here to come into the electronics. Okay, now after flipping the frame upside down, so now we're going to attach the remote control jack. and there's a little thin nut that Gary's tightening up so that that is attached properly. So earlier we were doing some test fitting. We actually mounted the fuel tank onto the underframe, and we're even gonna even had the trucks put on, and everything was looking good. And all of a sudden Gary says, we haven't hooked any wires up to the speakers. Oh, so we had to take everything back apart to actually get the speaker wires attached to the speakers. So we got that going now. Then we'll reattach the fuel tank and get the trucks on, and then start seeing if we can't run the wires up to the electronics bank, and hopefully have some success. But we're still moving along little by little, but making progress. Okay, so now that we've got the wires actually connected to the speakers, we have the fuel tank remounted, and so now we're gonna run some zip ties there to hold the wire for the remote control in place, and we're also going to do the same thing for the wires for the traction motor cables that will run into the end of the fuel tank and then up into the electronic bank. Okay, so now we've got the trucks back on, we've got the fuel tank mounted, the speakers are in, the wires for the trucks, they're in the fuel tank, and then I have the two little access holes that the wires will come out. So we've got all of that stuff ready to go. So now our next step is going to be actually flipping the locomotive over. Now I've got the board that I custom made in order to put the locomotive on when it's in the car, but we're going to utilize that on these sawhorses here. So we're going to get ready to slide the locomotive over a little bit, put the board on there, and then flip it over onto the rails. So I guess we're gonna
Skidder slide over.
Slide it over here.
But lift your end up.
Okay.
Ready?
All right.
Okay. I'll grab the board.
Okay.
You go your way. I got a lot of sleep.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. There we go.
You ready?
Okay. Yeah. Let me see. Let me make sure where I'm grabbing. Okay. Where are you gonna grab? Okay. Same spot. Okay.
Yep.
Here we go.
So,
Oh. Hold on a second. Hold on.
grab your pilot. Or your anti-climber.
Okay, there we go. I just had my hand stuck under there.
That's not good. And we don't even have all the weight on it yet.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Yeah. So now what we're doing is actually getting the trucks actually connected to the electronics bank. So hopefully the moment of truth will be coming up here shortly. Okay, so now we've got the batteries in, and I'll move to this side here. Got the batteries in, and we've got the electronic bank situated, and our wires are all connected here. So now the next step is just to actually connect those wires up to the batteries.
Here goes nothing. Well, Unfortunately, you got a dead man, so. Of course, we would tighten those up more when we're ready.
Sure.
Getting tight enough now. All right, I would assume. Here we go.
All righty.
Oh, yeah, gotta go to 2. Well, that's a good sound.
Yes, it is.
We got power.
We have power.
Let's turn it off.
It moves. And now I just got to remember exactly how we changed the prime mover sound. But well, we did actually get the locomotive fired up, and the electronics work. The locomotive moves. We've actually been working for at least the last hour and trying to get the proper prime mover sound. Unfortunately, the first time I tried to hook up the electronics, they didn't work. So I had to send them back to my friend Charles, who then in turn sent them to the manufacturer. However, the problem that we got is we got everything back and everything works now, except that the sound card is not producing the 710 prime mover. It's producing everything like Alco sounds or GE sounds, but we actually haven't found the right EMD sound, and certainly didn't find the 710 prime mover. But so that's something that at this point we got to figure out how to be able to program new sounds into the sound card to get what we need. But at least the bottom line is that it works. But we have a couple of the batteries in. We'll put the other 2 batteries in. In the meantime, Gary's actually hooking up a couple more cables that will serve as the charging ports. So everything is coming along here. Like I said, the lack of the proper prime mover is a little disappointing to me right now, but it still works. So I'm excited to actually get this thing back home and actually put it on the rails and actually see it run under its own power this time, as opposed to being shoved around. So we've definitely come a long way with this project. Okay, at this stage of the game, we are actually getting the second bank of batteries hooked up. Now, we had the first bank of batteries hooked up, and that gave us the initial connection to the electronics. So one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to basically have this locomotive heavy enough, number one, for anything that I wanted to do, for pulling cars, pulling passengers, and all sorts of things. However, besides that, the advantage is having 2 banks of batteries allows me to drain one, and if I'm going to be out on the railroad for quite a bit of time, I've got a second set of batteries that I can use. So Gary's actually now hooking up the batteries, the second set of batteries, to the electronics. So to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at here, so This is actually the knob to turn everything on, turn the system on. So if we're to actually turn it to one direction, we'll be drawing power from the first bank of batteries. If we were actually to turn it to the other direction, we'd be drawing power from the second bank of batteries. Now, this is in the off position. However, if we do a 180 and we have it facing that way, what ends up happening is this is a feature that we use when we get to the point where I've drained most of the juice out of this bank, I've drained most of the juice out of this bank, but, well, we still want a little bit more oomph, a little bit more power to at least get us back, or to run it just a little bit more before we drain them completely. So by turning it the opposite way of the off position, it actually takes power, what's left out of both banks of batteries. It actually takes that and combines them to continue to operate the system until it's totally drained. But as you can see, since I've been talking here, Gary's got everything hooked up here, so it has power. So he's just flipped it over to the second bank of batteries here.
Why'd the video end so quickly?
Well, is that it? Or is it? I guess you'll have to stay with me for video number 23.
Coming up next on the War Bonds channel.
You know, what she said.